Hey, what's up, everybody? This is John Ricard. You're listening and watching Camera Work Podcast number 43. We are honored that you choose to listen to this. There is so much content right now on Netflix, on the internet, on iTunes. It's like you have so many choices. And I don't want to make you think about that now and turn off the podcast, but I'm just acknowledging that you have a lot of choices. So when you take a minute to listen to this, we really are honored by that. And we look at it like as an obligation to provide some interesting, good content. So thank you guys for listening. The best place to find me personally is on my Instagram. It's John Ricard, JohnRicard. And with me today is Ray Tamara.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you for listening. My name is Ray. I'm a photographer in New York City. I'm also a yoga teacher. You can find me at Tamara, RTAMARRA, and thanks for listening.
Right, and we're also joined by Stephen Gomez.
Hey guys, I'm a photographer based here in New York City, out of Brooklyn, and you can find me on Instagram at _Stephen Gomez, STEPHENGOMEZ.
Cool. So the topic today is like websites or apps that we love for whatever reason, okay? And I'll tell you, mine is a site called Tookapic, which is a horrible name, but it's TOOKAPIC. And we had two discussions on the podcast recently about doing a 365 project. And on both of them, I explained all these reasons why I did not like doing a 365 project. And I'm not going to repeat that here. But in a nutshell, I just said it kind of becomes a burden to walk around with this camera all day long. But I went back and I listened to those podcasts. Sometimes I'll play the podcast back just to check if it like audio sounds good and to see if I'm talking too much, which is what my sister always says I'm doing. And I play it back. And when I heard myself saying why I'm not going to do a 365 project, it made me go, you have to do a 365 project. So as soon as I heard those two episodes, I resurrected it and I called it 100 Days of Leica. So I'm doing a 100-day project at least. Maybe I'll keep it going, but definitely 100 days. It's been a lot of fun. It's turning out to be a lot of street photography. I keep walking and finding these shots in Times Square. So a lot of times that's what it is. But on the 7th day of doing it, because luckily I did start on January 1st, I discovered a website called Tookapic. And this is a website designed for you to host your 365 project. And what's interesting is when I tried to do this project thing last year, I found a site from Polaroid. I think it was called Blip Photo. And you could put up a picture every day and tag them. People can follow you, all that kind of stuff. But the photos were really small on Blip, and it just kind of frustrated me that they were tiny. On Tookapic, they really gave more thought to making it a 365 project site. The pictures are pretty big, and the site is clearly designed by the people from 500 Pics. It looks exactly like 500 Pics, the interface when you're uploading, so it must be owned by those people. And what they do is you can only upload a photo from yesterday or today. And if you think about what this means is, as soon as you miss that window, you lose your count. Now, yesterday, coincidentally, as we're talking about this, I forgot to upload my picture last night. I kid you not, at 12:20 at night, I kind of woke up and I said, oh my God, I did not upload the picture. So what that means is today, I can upload yesterday's photo and today's photo. If for some reason I don't do my upload today, tomorrow I can only upload yesterday and today, which would be today and tomorrow. I'll lose yesterday and my count will reset back to 0.
Oh no.
So they force you to have this discipline. You get this 1-day window to miss your upload and you go back to 0. So I'm up to whatever, I guess about 35 days, 40 days, whatever number of days it would be from January 7th, 2016 till today. And I love the idea that they make you do that. But one funny thing that they did on the site was the last time I logged on it, it said that they sent an email. They said that they're now going to be able to sell your pictures if you want. You can click a button and you can sell the pictures. This site has the nerve to say, like, click this button if you want to turn on sales. You'll get $5 from every picture we sell.
That's messed up.
And they don't tell you what they're selling them for. Like, okay, if you're selling it for $6, maybe I want to sell it to you for $5. But if you're selling it for $9,600,053, maybe I don't want to just blindly click a button that says, I get $5 when you sell the picture.
The nerve.
The nerve. At the very least, you should say a percentage. You should go, you're going to get 50% of what we sell, or 60 or 2%, whatever. But not to mention, $5 is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
like I said, unless you're selling it for $6, this is a pretty crappy deal. So I don't really understand who are the people clicking that button. I mean, unless I'd have to be shooting something that's so easy for me to shoot to make that worth it. Something that, like, it couldn't be anything that feels like it's work. Like, I've got to get a model and get her to sign a release. I'm not selling that image for $5. I'll put it for free on Instagram. I'm sure as hell not going to put it. Make a $5 sale, and where is it going? On the side of a bus? And I have to explain to her that I sold her picture for $5. Like, it's
that's a logistical nightmare.
yeah, I thought that was weird, but I do like the site a lot. So if you're doing a 365 project, take a look for this. It's called Took-A-Pic, and as I said, it kind of forces you to have a discipline on a 365 project because you can only upload yesterday and today, or your numbers reset back to 0. And right now it's what time is it? About noon. I only have 12 hours to upload yesterday and I guess today, or I may be in danger of losing my count.
Don't miss out.
I'm going to try not to. All right, Ray, any particular website or blog or anything like that that you love?
You know what? I listen to a podcast called Channel 33. It is on SoundCloud, and it's also on iTunes, and it's basically a pop culture recap. So there is a couple of people that do various podcasts about The Bachelor, which I'd never watch. Bachelor reality show. They also talk about sports, and they also talk about TV and music. So I live in a cave, so I don't watch TV or very rarely watch TV, but I get a lot of information on what's happening TV-wise by listening to these men and women, and they are so intelligent. So they'll talk about like shows that they are absolutely in love with. They talk about Game of Thrones and why it's must-watch TV. They talk about Leftovers. They talk about Homeland, things that I'm not really interested in even looking at. They really talk about the Nick, and I'm like, okay. And then they talk to the people that create it and what their motivation is, and the showrunners and what they want to do filmmaking wise. And I respond to it because I want to do that same thing. I want to create those same emotions in my photos. And then also they talk about music. So they talk with artists, and they talk about their creative process, and I think that's interesting. They're also very snarky and smart, so I think that's interesting. And then they cover things that I wouldn't necessarily even know about. So they're talking about this show called Hamilton, which is the hottest ticket on Broadway.
Big deal. Yeah.
And they talk about, it's a recap of Andrew Hamilton, but it's told in a rap format, and everybody loves it. It's the same guy who did In the Heights. And then they also talk about his creative process. So there's interviews in back in the day about Lin-Manuel Miranda and why he does this, and what his motivations were, and some of his obstacles in trying to get this rap musical to the world.
Right.
So it's really,
funny
really
because
interesting.
When you talking about the creative process, that's interesting because I'm not a huge Broadway fan. There's a few of them I like. I really love the musical Rent. Seen it a bunch of times. Absolutely love it. And they've always said it was based on this thing called La Boheme. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Boheme, something like that effect. Boheme, maybe? I don't know. I don't want to say it again because I don't pronounce it right. But I recently saw that with my mother a few weeks ago, and it turned out a lot of the elements really are the same as Rent. A lot of the little scenes and the kind of overall story about these artists and their interactions with each other. And I just thought when I was watching it, like, what a good example of how you are supposed to do creativity, which means the person who created Rent, which I think his name is Jonathan Lawson or something to that effect, he saw this other old opera and did what in today's time, I guess we would just call ripped off, stole the plot, and created a brand new musical of it set in the Lower East Side in the present time, and created my favorite musical. That's what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to steal to a certain degree, borrow, take these elements, put them together in your own new way. You're not supposed to come up with something from scratch, because if you had to do that, nobody could do it. Maybe 1 out of 1 million people could do that, but the rest of us need to be doing what Apple did with the iPhone. Take the idea from this phone and the idea from that phone and put all these ideas together better than anyone else has done it before. So that's why I look at something like that old opera versus the modern Broadway play that I like. as an example of how to do it the right way. So anything that's kind of talking to people about their creative process and how they come up with their ideas and really where they're borrowing from is fascinating to me. What did you say the name of the podcast was again?
The name of the podcast, it's Channel 33. I listen to it on SoundCloud. It's part of the Bill Simmons podcast network. Bill Simmons is the sports guy. He's a very, very famous and influential podcaster. They call him the Podfather because
Podfather,
because he was doing this stuff way back in the day, and it's related to sports, but he has a lot of other people that are talking about other current pop culture stuff, and that's how I find out about things that I would never
because like
come
you said,
across.
you're not necessarily watching
So that's why I
TV
like
every
it.
2 seconds. Cool. Steven, give us something that we like from the phone or from the whatever.
Well, I was just thinking I was going to talk about a phone app, but I actually realized that I get a lot of ideas and influence from Reddit. And Reddit has the Art Photography board and the Art Analog board. And I'm sure I've mentioned it before, I shoot a lot of film. I like a lot of film. And the photography board and the analog board have some really creative people on there, and especially on the film side. You see people using modern day lighting, modern day technology, but still shooting film, and they produce some amazing work. A lot of the street photographers that are on Reddit, they come out with articles and they come out with different ways to process film and different approaches of photography.
Right, but you don't get bothered by like the interface of Reddit? It
No,
kind
not
of looks
at all.
like 1991.
That's how I like it.
Really?
It looks old, gritty, like internet before the internet was mainstream and everybody needed, fancy, scripts and stuff to make the websites look all bling. No, I like it old. That's why I still shoot film. I like it simple. There's a link, I click it, it takes me there. There's nothing in between.
I don't know. When I go to Reddit, I seem to have trouble just figuring out what I'm supposed to click with the threads and.
Well, it's all. It gets a lot easier once you sit down and you just create an account and you play with it, because then you can subscribe to all the boards you want. Right. Most of my boards are either movie boards, because I'm a big movie buff, or photography. So, and the movie boards too also, give me a lot of good ideas, like what Ray had mentioned a while ago on another podcast about Daredevil and looking at the lighting and how they use lighting. A lot of times people will go in depth into scenes of movies and analyze it and the cinematography, and they'll tell you, how they lit this and what kind of camera they used and, what they were going for. They'll show you storyboards of what they initially thought and then how it ended up turning out. And you there's a lot of content that emerges on Reddit that you wouldn't normally find.
Right.
Interviews, behind the scenes.
Yeah, my feeling is that Reddit is almost sort of unmoderated. Is that correct?
No, it's moderated. It's somewhere in between moderated, unmoderated. Unmoderated in the sense where you can submit almost anything, and as long as it's popular and within the guidelines of the site, it'll reach a certain level of popularity. But it's moderated in the sense that there are people who are in charge of the boards to make sure that nothing, inappropriate is posted, and
right.
if you're being a tool, you could get banned from the board, like that. But usually it's kind of like a vote system. So if you post something and it's really, really cool, people will vote it a lot. And if it's boring and nobody likes it, nobody will touch it, and it'll just disappear into the ether that is Reddit.
Right, which is where it deserves to be, in other words, is what they're basically
it's
saying.
Basically survival of the fittest on the internet. As long as the content you're providing is insightful and entertaining and, holds some kind of value, people will flock to it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I've never actually checked that out. I think, and I mentioned it too many times on the podcast, but I usually go to 500 Pix when I'm personally looking for images that I like or images that I'm aspiring to create. I'll do a search on 500 Pix for whatever that is, beauty, fashion, whatever that might be. And I find a lot of strong images there that I can go through very quickly and find what I need inspiration-wise for pictures. Okay. Any other site anybody wanted to mention?
I guess I'm a Fuji shooter, so I like the sites like Fujilove and Fuji versus Fuji. Those are always nice for me. The boards there, people have that's where I go usually to find out what equipment's actually relevant with the Fuji cameras, because not everything works well. It's a good resource to have if you use the Fuji system,
If
to
you're
be
on-
in that environment with other Fuji shooters, and everybody kind of figures out, okay, well, this will work better for this, and then this, and
Right.
this one doesn't, always work properly with the Fuji cameras, stuff like that.
I'll sometimes visit this Leica forum where they talk about like what they want and things like that. And every time I'm reading what these guys want from the next Leica, I'm just going to myself, please don't let Leica read this, because I don't want anything that these guys, all like, take the movie button off. I'm like, how about we just leave the movie button? It's the tiniest little button I've ever seen in my life. Just leave it. And let's keep movies on the camera, guys. Okay. So, all right, we're going to wrap there. That is some of the sites that we like personally that just kind of help get us going each day and, help us maybe be a little more creative or stay a little focused on what we're doing. Again, try to share the podcast if you can. Send out a tweet. We look at those tweets. We really appreciate them. It means something to us that you take your time to listen to this when you have so many other choices. Again, my Instagram is John Ricard, JohnRicard. Hope to see you there. Ray, where do they find you?
At RTAMARRA. Thank you.
Stephen.
And you can find me on Instagram at _STEPHENGOMEZ.